My husband is leaving me for a younger woman. I'm 34, married for 7 years to my husband, together for 10. I love my husband and always thought he felt the same about me. We built a life together. 8 years ago, he had severe anxiety and couldn't sleep, so I would stay up with him, holding his hands and doing breathing exercises until he could finally rest. I'd go to work exhausted. I helped him find a therapist. I encouraged him to grow in his career even though he was afraid. 6 years ago, I quit my job to take care of his mom who had cancer because he had the potential to earn more than me. While I was job hunting again, I got pregnant, and he suggested I stay home to take care of him and our daughter. So I did. I cared for him, and I loved him. In December, he got a promotion, which meant more hours. I gave birth to our daughter in March. I went through a phase where I felt horrible, fat, ugly, and it was just me and my baby at home. He barely talked to me, always said he was tired, and that I wouldn't understand what he had to say. If it wasn't for my mom staying on video calls with me, I think I would have felt completely abandoned. I've been suggesting couples therapy since June, and he kept saying everything was fine. Now I feel like I'm nothing more than a mother. I used to read, study, be interesting. I wasn't sexually frustrated or insecure back then. I used to have conversations about politics, music, books, art. I decorate our house myself with my own savings, and it's everything I ever dreamed of. I love my house. The colors, the furniture, my kitchen. It took me years to make it exactly how I wanted. I have the garden I always dreamed of, a vegetable patch I adore, and a hanging chair where I love to sit with my baby. Last week, he came home later than usual, and I was happy to see him. I was in the living room playing with our daughters. He asked the older one to go to her room. He seemed like he had been drinking and then said, "I love you so much, but I don't want to be with you anymore." He told me I wasn't the person he fell in love with anymore. Then he said he was in love with a girl from work, that she was everything he'd ever dreamed of, and that he needed to give himself the chance to live that love without guilt. Yes, he cheated on me with a 22-year-old. When I finally managed to speak, the only thing that came out was, "But what about my home decor?" At some point, I picked up my baby and started shouting things like, "I put time into this house. I did everything it needed. This house is mine." We argued because apparently I didn't value his suffering enough. I don't know why I kept talking about the house. I guess I'm disposable. I'm 34 with a 4-month-old baby and a 4-year-old daughter. I don't have a job. I'm going to lose my dream home. I feel ugly, fat, and he's told me he's not attracted to me anymore because I gained too much weight during my last pregnancy. I'm going to talk with his mom and brother about the divorce today. I'm starting with them because they're close to me, and his brother went through a divorce over infidelity early last year. Also, his mom is very attached to me for obvious reasons. I was there for her during the worst part of her life, and his brother and I are also very close. I also texted my mom, and she's coming here to stay with me and the girls. I hope she gets the visa to visit, and my dad, who's American, will be coming to my state in 2 weeks. I talked to his brother about the affair, and he leaving. He told me to find a lawyer, and now we're talking to a few lawyers today. I accepted the help because I have the girls with me, so it's hard to do everything alone.
I am suing my brother, and my girlfriend wants me to disown my parents too. After I got a degree in computer science, my brother and his 2 partners recruited me to work a summer for them. They wanted me to set up their infrastructure for their new company in finance and investments. 1 summer turned into 2 years of free work as a secretary, receptionist, systems tech, personal assistant, accountant, research analyst. They paid me about 4 or 5 times, totaling about $7,000 to $8,000 in 2 years. When I left to start grad school, they were mad that I wouldn't stay. When I finished grad school and put them on my resume, they lied to prospective employers about me. They denied I worked for them and said I was trying to use my brother's name to get ahead. They also accused me of visiting their office and sexually harassing female employees they never even had. I called them to ask them about it, and they, including my brother, just laughed about the whole thing and said I was getting what I deserved. Kind of like, "It's what you get when you mess with us." My counselor and some other people from school, including my headhunter, helped me get a job. But I had to sue my brother and his partners for slander and other things. My brother called me to laugh about the lawsuit when they got served, but now they're scared, and my brother has my dad pressuring me to drop the lawsuit and just sit down with them both to work something out. My dad called this just a little big. Brother bullying little brother nonsense, and demanded I drop the lawsuit. He and my mom uninvited me to Thanksgiving at their house, but my mom pretty much tried to stay out of it. I could tell this was hard for her. There's very little to update legally in terms of the lawsuit, but I had a laptop that contained lists of clients that my brother and his partners stole from their respective employers before they left to start the company. I didn't want to turn those files over to my attorney because things are bad enough for them already. My girlfriend had a different opinion. She wants me to just absolutely let them have it and crush them. I called my attorney and told them I had the files and dropped them off at his firm on the 9th. On the 10th, I got a call from his firm saying that my attorney needed to see me that very day. I went in, and he said that the files would be turned over to the U.S. Attorney's Office, so it's out of our hands now. But he really wanted to talk to me about my parents. He spoke to my dad and basically said that my dad is a world-class prick. He's going to subpoena both my parents to testify at a deposition and probably at trial if we make it that far. He wanted me to prepare myself for what they might say about me. He made it clear there is no turning back now. I didn't pay anything for my attorney to take the case, so his firm is very financially invested in this now. Basically, they're calling the shots now. I think my attorney thinks I'm weak, or that I'll want to back off or take it easy on them. He actually told me that he knows my family would weaken me. I think he underestimates me. Anyway, he told me to just brace myself for the heat my dad will bring on me. I told him I had 2 older sisters on my side, and my mother was pretty neutral. He assured me that my mother is absolutely not neutral. So he just told me to prepare for anything. So I got phone calls from my 2 sisters who both live about 300 miles away. They were disgusted with my dad and my brother's behavior and had told me they were 100% behind me. Now they told me that my girlfriend and I are uninvited to go see them and their children this Christmas. They told me they loved me, but that I needed to back off of this lawsuit. This was a little bit of a shock. It didn't crush me, but it wasn't easy to hear. They won't be contacting me anymore and want me to not contact them. And they said they have their reasons. They both cried when they called, but I stayed calm. They also emailed my girlfriend to let her know about being uninvited to their homes for Christmas. My girlfriend blasted them both with a very scathing response that I wish she hadn't sent. But it's her decision how she responds to them. My dad is getting a little out of control. He confronted me and my girlfriend outside the house of a family friend who had us over for a holiday get-together on Sunday night. It got heated, and I said some things that were probably below the belt and made him almost cry. His eyes watered and he was trying to not cry. Then my girlfriend jumped in and blasted him like she did my sisters. Basically, she's on a roll right now. I can tell the gloves have come off for her. My mom just stayed in my dad's truck and watched, but she couldn't hear anything, I don't think. For now, there's nothing else going on. Oh, one other thing. My attorney said my brother and his partners closed doors on their business already. They went under. They have filed some puzzling and contradictory responses to our lawsuit, which surprises me because my brother is smarter than that usually. They have now changed attorneys and retained a reputable firm. The first thing the new attorneys did is ask what it would take to settle. My attorney says their new attorneys are smart. They know it will be a bloodbath in court. I guess I'll just have to wait and see where it goes from here. But some of you commented from experience that the blowback from legal battles like this tears families apart for decades sometimes. I can see how this can happen, and probably will. I gave an old man a ride home, and he turned out to be my childhood bus driver. Last week, something happened that honestly still feels surreal. It was late evening, and I stopped by a small gas station on my way home from work. I noticed an older man sitting outside with a couple of grocery bags at his feet. He looked tired, kind of restless, like he was waiting for someone. I filled up my tank, went inside for a drink, and when I came out, he was still there, just sitting, staring at the ground. I almost walked straight past him, but something in me hesitated. I asked, "Sir, are you okay? Do you need help?" He looked up with a half smile and explained that his ride had canceled on him last minute and the buses were done running for the night. He lived only a few miles away but couldn't carry the bags all that distance. I don't usually offer strangers rides, but he seemed kind and genuinely stuck. So I offered. "If you're comfortable with it, I can drop you off. I'm heading that way anyway." His face lit up with relief, and after a little hesitation, he agreed. Once we got into my car, he thanked me probably 3 times before we even pulled out of the parking lot. I asked him how his day had been, and soon enough, we were talking, like old neighbors. He mentioned he had lived in the same town for decades, and that's when he asked me where I grew up. I told him the name of my hometown, which is about 30 minutes from where we were. His eyebrows shot up. "Oh, really? What street?" he asked. I laughed, a little surprised by his curiosity, but I told him the street name anyway, and then it got weird, in a good way. He paused for a second, squinting like he was trying to remember something, and then said, "Wait a second. I used to drive a school bus on that street. Every morning I picked up 2 kids at the corner near the big oak tree. One of them always had a backpack covered in superhero stickers. Was that you?" I almost slammed on the brakes. I stared at him, completely shocked, and said, "That was me. No way." He started laughing, shaking his head in disbelief. "I knew it. I knew I remembered that backpack. You'd always sit in the 3rd row right side by the window. Quiet kid, but polite." I couldn't believe this stranger who I'd just randomly given a ride to had been the same man who drove me to school every morning for years of my childhood. He remembered little details, too, like the fact that my neighbor always tried to sneak candy on the bus, or that I once fell asleep and he had to gently wake me when we got to school. The whole drive home, we swapped memories. He told me stories from his years of being a bus driver, the funny kids, the troublemakers, and the ones he still thinks about. I shared what I've been up to since those school days, and he seemed genuinely happy to hear it. When we finally pulled up to his house, he thanked me again, but this time it felt heavier, like it meant more. Before he got out, he said, "It's funny how life works sometimes. You never expect the kids you once looked after to come back around and return the favor." That hit me. As I drove away, I couldn't stop smiling. It felt like this tiny, random decision to stop and ask if he needed help brought everything full circle. I used to rely on him to get me safely to school, and decades later, he unknowingly relied on me to get home. Life has a strange way of reminding you how connected we all are.
I told the doctor my mom was lying about my symptoms. I'm a 15-year-old girl. I'm 5 and 82 lelips. I take Keppra, hydroxychloroquine, and Adderall. I live in the US. This has been going on for 5 years. I'm diagnosed with epilepsy, undifferentiated connective tissue disorder, and ADHD. My mom thinks I have POTS, EDS, and some other things. Basically, I had a seizure once when I was about 10 on a school field trip. My mom had always been really intense anytime I got sick. She took me to the doctor for every single cold. But this seizure sent her overboard. And since then, she's basically been convinced that I have some kind of serious diseases. At first, I believed her. She was good at convincing me I was feeling things, or that stuff happened that I didn't remember, because I was having a seizure. But the only one I know I had for sure was the one in 5th grade, and when I was at the hospital, after they didn't find an obvious cause. Since then, my mom takes me to all these appointments claiming I have symptoms I don't, or making them sound way worse than they are. For example, she'll claim I'm having fevers, and that the only reason I don't have one in clinic is because I took Tylenol. It'll be true that I took Tylenol, but not because I had a fever. She just gives it to me. She'll also have me take cold medicine before cardiology appointments. Like she says, "Here you're sniffly, take this." But now I'm reading that cold medicine makes your heart rate go up, and half the time, I don't even feel sniffly. It's like she'll plant things too. She'll start saying, "You seem lightheaded. Your joints look swollen. You look out of focus." Like she's trying to convince me. And it used to work, but now I'm sitting here like, I feel fine. And I'm sick of all these appointments. I want to do stuff with my friends and stop taking meds that make me irritable and sad and sick to my stomach. She'll take pictures at angles that make things look worse than they are. One time I got a ton of bruises after playing on a water slide inflatable thing and taking a bunch of ibuprofen for joint pain, but I got a ton of bruises from it. And she told the doctor they showed up with no cause, and I got a full leukemia workup, and she was telling everyone how I probably had leukemia. I didn't. I knew what it was from, but she convinced me that playing on inflatables would never cause that kind of bruising unless I was really sick, so I didn't say anything. The problem is, now it's been years, and I'm afraid if I say something, we're going to get in trouble. And then no doctor will ever believe me if I do get sick someday. I don't know why I didn't say something sooner. I've been pretty sure for like 2 years that she's making most of this up, but it's confusing, and I don't know, I thought maybe she was right and I was just brushing off things. Sometimes it would feel like she was right. What do? Can I tell the doctors I see that it's probably not real, or is this going to ruin my medical care forever? Also, I really did have a seizure when I was 10. I was at school, and there was a whole cafeteria of witnesses. So, that wasn't made up. I don't even know what's real at this point, though. I had a high ANA, but I don't think a lot of the other symptoms that got the connective tissue disease diagnosis were real. I'm not trying to say it's not my fault, too. I should have said something sooner, but I feel stuck. Please help me. Figure this out. I see a cardiologist Thursday, and I want this to be over. Also, I know my BMI is low. I don't eat a lot. I'm working on it.
I think my new landlord is schizophrenic and I'm running out of money. For background, I have been really struggling with depression and grief for the last 1.5 years since my mom passed away. I ended up quitting my job about 2 months after she passed because my mood swings were unpredictable, and I had received a large sum of money from the sale of my late grandparents' house. I moved in with my brother and his fiancée for 3 months, and it was incredibly toxic. I ended up going into an inpatient mental hospital, and they threw me out and changed the locks. I stayed in an Airbnb for 2 weeks until I found someone who was willing to rent to me while I technically had no income. I'll call her Susan. Susan called me very excitedly after I responded to her listing on Craigslist. It was a half-duplex, 3-bedroom with a front porch and yard for a very reasonable price, so I was excited too. I drove an hour to meet her and tour the apartment, and I loved it. It just needed a good cleaning. I ended up signing the lease the next day, and she chatted with me for over an hour. She's 67, has leukemia, and her husband passed away a few years ago. She has a son that lives a few states away and doesn't talk to her very often. She seemed to switch topics rapidly, but I just figured she was older and lonely and was excited to be talking to someone new, so I didn't think anything of it. Cut to a few days later, I moved in the day before and I hired cleaners. She had been trying to clean the place herself, but her idea of clean and my idea of clean are very different. Plus, she shouldn't be doing that kind of physical labor. I had told her about it already, and she seemed grateful and promised to reimburse me. The cleaners arrived and she starts screaming at them. I told you to never set foot on my property again. You have 10 seconds to leave. I came out on the porch and tried to calm her down. I said, Susan, these are the company I hired to come clean, and she turned on me. I told you what she did to me, and you hired her. Am I going to have to evict you next? I spent the last week cleaning, and you hire cleaners. It's a slap in the face, just bonkers. The owner of the cleaning company came to try and reason with her, and eventually she let it go. They cleaned, very rushed because they were clearly uncomfortable, and Susan was pleasant with me the next day. A couple days later, I wake up to a flashlight in my window. Susan is outside with 2 cop cars. By the time I put on pants and came downstairs, they were knocking on my door. The cops asked to come in and speak privately, and they said that Susan believes I was in her bedroom. I obviously wasn't, and they basically said, well, lock your doors, and if anything happens, call us, gave me the incident report number and left. The very next morning, I wake up to her pounding on my door, screaming at me. I opened it and recorded a full 5 minutes of her screaming at me about conversations that never happened, things like me demanding food and demanding a repairman. She taped an eviction notice written on a doily on my door and tried to wrestle. My phone out of my hands. I called the cops on her. They came and told me to change the locks, she can't evict me without going to the courts, and told us to keep our distance. Since she has a key to my apartment, I put a heavy air conditioner in front of the door that night, and when I woke up, it had been pushed in about a foot. So now I have a chair wedged under the knob.